We continue. So for the model that we want to choose for considering of blood flow in the arteries, we try to fall back on our earlier fluid flow problem that we solved with respect to water in a pipe, water flow in a pipe, and that was considered to be as fully developed flow in the round pipe, with that simple situation in which we considered an inviscid, incompressible fluid flow. But here, in the same geometrical form, we try to consider the blood viscosity model, such that whereby the blood flows in our arteries, in our system, and when heart pumps it all the way. So you can see this is a typical diagram of heart, and you can see the arteries that through which the heart is pumping the blood into the body in different directions. And of course there are sides. We have right ventricle, we have left ventricle, and aorta, and all these sides, they have different functions as decided by the nature and the system that exists in all humanity. We are only to look at the fluid flow, the blood flow in these arteries throughout the body. And you can see that they are kind of cylindrical in nature, but not straight, not rigid. They are flexible and they are not straight, but somehow the fluid is flowing from them. The only common thing, they are cylindrical. And at places, even their diameter or the radius changes. Many veins are of a different parameter, different radii, and so on. So all these things, all these anomalies, keeping in mind, still we try to solve this problem as our initial attempt, taking cue from the fully developed flow that we considered earlier. So fundamentally, to consider it the model of the blood flow through arteries, the steady flow approximation is inappropriate, because this is not steady, it's unsteady. However, as an approximation, we will stick to approximate flow. And then we are taking the Poiseuille's model. Then there is sometimes a rapid acceleration, sometimes deceleration, and so on, and the fluid is in different direction. The heart is pumping out, sometimes the heart is pumping in, and so all these things. And then it has a cycle of about 300 milliseconds, as we showed in a figure earlier. Then again, with respect to the parallel flow and axisymmetric flow, the same thing we may not see here. The both possibly are not strictly, they do not apply to the blood flow. So you can see that how many anomalies are there, and in spite of those reactions, we do not have other options. And as a linear model, we just want to try and attempt and see how does it behave. And of course, we have pointed out that blood is not considered to be as a Newtonian fluid. It is a non-Newtonian fluid. But here we will start with a solution of the Navier-Stokes equation by assuming it as a Newtonian fluid. The complication, you can see that the idea of blood flow, as you know, is to supply oxygen to all parts of the body. And for this, it flows in two phases. The red blood cells flow, that followed by the plasma, and then afterwards the red blood cells. So this cycle continues on and on, and always. And you know that heart never stops pumping all its life. It's a wonderful creature of Almighty Allah. Consider the example earlier that we are considering, that is, in which we considered the fully developed flow in a rigid pipe. So the same model is taken here, except that the fluid that is flowing is blood, and it behaves as a viscoelastic fluid. It demonstrates the behavior of a viscous fluid as well as elastic, because it has elasticity in its nature. And then there will be, due to viscosity, there will be shear, there will be stress, which are given by these values. When we look for the solution, we have not written down the equations as we normally try to do, because we are taking cue from an earlier problem, the Poiseuille's problem that we have taken. So those things are sort of assumed to have been known to you. And from that one, you take the same equation, we go up to the same, we arrived at this solution in that fully developed flow in a rounded pipe. Then we obtain this equation. And when we continue to solve it, we reduce it to this form.